Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. And today we're going to be diving into something pretty wild. It's President Trump's executive order on cryptocurrency.
Yeah, signed just yesterday.
Just yesterday, January 23rd, 2025.
Oh.
So hot off the presses, and we've got a lot of ground to cover because this thing is dense, like a neutron star. But the big headline is this idea of a national digital asset stockpile.
It definitely sounds like something out of a spy thriller.
Right. Like, are we talking Fort Knox for Bitcoin? Is the government going to be, filling up vaults with hard drives full of crypto? I don't even know what that looks like. But before we get there, let's back up a bit.
Yeah, let's set the stage.
We've got a stack of sources here, everything from the official White House fact sheet to reactions from, everybody, the New York Times, Bloomberg, you name it. But before we get into the weeds, can we just, level set? What does this order actually say? What's the big picture here?
Well, I mean, the simplest way to put it is that Trump is basically saying, game on.
Game on how?
The U.S. is ready to play in the big leagues of the crypto world. This order is about establishing a clear framework for how the U.S. government will deal with digital assets going forward. And you're right, up until now, it's been kind of a free-for-all, the Wild West of finance.
Yeah, I remember trying to explain Bitcoin to my grandma last year. It was not a successful conversation. So clarity is good, I think. But what's the actual, playbook here?
Okay, so the order lays out 4 key components. First, and this is the big one for me, is the creation of the Presidential Working Group on Digital Asset Markets.
Okay, what's that?
Well, it's essentially a task force, a brain trust, whatever you want to call it, made up of the top financial minds in the government. We're talking about the Treasury Secretary, the SEC chair, all the heavy hitters. And their job is to create a comprehensive regulatory framework for the entire crypto ecosystem, stable coins, all the way to potentially that stockpile you mentioned earlier.
Wait, hold on. So let's talk about that. This national digital asset stockpile. This is like the government actually buying and holding a bunch of Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever.
It doesn't explicitly say in the order which assets they're looking at, but yeah, that's the general idea.
Okay, I got to be honest. That sounds a little crazy. What's the point of that? Is this like a hedge against inflation? They're trying to control the market?
A lot of analysts think it's more of a strategic move, a way to gain leverage on the international stage. Think about it. If countries start using crypto more and more for trade, and the U.S. has a giant pile of it just sitting there, that gives them a lot of power.
Okay. So not just protecting the dollar, but maybe using crypto to influence the whole global financial system. That's big. All right, what else we got?
Well, the second big piece of this order is, they're banning central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs.
Wait, what? No digital dollar. I thought that was the inevitable next step for everyone.
Nope. The order is very clear. The U.S. will not be issuing a government-controlled digital currency, at least not for now.
Wow. I bet the conspiracy folks are going to have a field day with this one.
Huh.
But, practically speaking, what does this even mean? Is this a privacy thing? Or maybe sticking it to the big banks?
It's probably a mix of both. There are legitimate concerns about government overreach with the CBDC. Imagine a world where every transaction you make is tracked and monitored.
Yeah, not a fan of that.
Right. And then there's the control aspect. By saying no to a CBDC, the U.S. is signaling that they want to support a more decentralized, open financial system, one that's not dominated by any single entity, including themselves.
Okay, so maybe a little bit of a libertarian streak in there?
Yeah.
Less government, more freedom in the digital space. Yeah, I can see the appeal of that.
Absolutely. And it's a completely different approach from what we're seeing in places like China, where they're pushing their own digital yuan really hard as a way to, exert more control.
Yeah. It's definitely a different playbook. Okay, so we've got this regulatory working group, the digital asset stockpile, and now no digital dollar. What's the fourth thing?
Well, the fourth component is probably the one that's going to stir up the most controversy.
Hit me.
Trump is revoking a lot of the regulatory frameworks that Biden put in place, the ones that were supposed to, bring some order to the crypto Wild West.
So it's not just building new stuff, it's tearing down the old stuff, too. That's a pretty strong statement.
Yeah, and it makes sense if you look at Trump's broader economic agenda, deregulation, boosting American businesses, all that.
Right.
He clearly sees crypto as a potential growth industry, and he doesn't want the government getting in the way.
Okay, so that's starting to make sense. But it's not just the order itself, it's the whole, presentation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trump signs this thing with David Sachs right there beside him.
Yeah, and that was definitely a deliberate choice.
Right. Sachs is a big name in crypto A&D, artificial intelligence. So Gotta mean something.
It signals that Trump's serious about bringing in the top minds to guide his crypto strategy. And it hints at a deeper connection between crypto and AI, which is definitely something we're going to dive into later in this.
Ooh, I like where this is going. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's talk reactions, our sources. I mean, everyone from the New York Times to NBC News, it's a real mixed bag, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. It's been pretty wild, the response so far.
Some people are over the moon, some are, well, not so much. What gives?
You've got the crypto evangelists who are thrilled, right? They see this as a sign that the U.S. is finally taking digital assets seriously. But then you've got others who are saying this doesn't go far enough.
The New York Times even called it a potential missed opportunity. What's that about?
Well, some critics were hoping for a bolder move, like immediately establishing that Bitcoin reserve. They say just exploring the feasibility is a waste of time, and it's letting other countries take the lead in this, global crypto race.
So it's not just about being pro-crypto. It's about being the most pro-crypto.
Yeah.
The pressure is on. I guess that's what you get when you call yourself the crypto president, right?
Yeah, I mean, Trump's rhetoric has definitely raised expectations. The question is, can he actually deliver? Can he make the U.S. a true leader in this space? We can't forget that this is all happening on a global stage, right? I mean, other countries are making their own moves in the crypto world.
Oh, absolutely. It's like everyone's suddenly realizing that crypto isn't just some internet fad anymore. It's a real player in global finance.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look at China, for example. They've been pushing their digital yuan super hard, and it's already making waves in international trade.
So it's not just about the tech. It's geopolitical, too. It's like a digital arms race with everyone vying for control in this new financial world order or something.
And the stakes are high, like really high.
Yeah.
The way this all plays out, it could change global power dynamics, economic stability, even national security.
Okay, so this is way bigger than just like Bitcoin going up or down, right?
Yeah. This is about the future of money itself, Will it be decentralized, controlled by algorithms, or will governments and institutions still hold the reins?
Whoa, okay, those are some big questions. And I got to admit, I'm a little nervous about this whole U.S. crypto stockpile thing. It sounds kind of cool in theory, like something out of a spy movie, but are there any risks involved?
Oh, there are always risks with anything new and untested. One concern is that a national digital asset stockpile could be a huge target for hackers, even nation-state actors.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. If everyone knows the U.S. is sitting on a mountain of crypto, it's like a giant bullseye for cyber criminals.
Exactly. And then there's the volatility issue. Crypto markets are notoriously unpredictable, so the value of this stockpile could swing wildly, which means taxpayer money is at risk.
I see why some experts are calling this executive order a gamble. I mean, the potential payoff is huge, but so are the risks.
It's a high-stakes game, and it's not just about buying the crypto. It's about managing it responsibly and protecting it.
Right. Okay. So we've got geopolitical maneuvering, cybersecurity threats, the crazy ups and downs of the crypto market. What does all this mean for, normal people? Will I be buying groceries with Bitcoin anytime soon?
That's the question, isn't it? I mean, the global stuff might seem abstract, but the shift towards digital assets could have a real impact on everyone's wallet.
Okay, like how?
Well, if the U.S. becomes a major player in the crypto space, it could lead to wider adoption, making it more accessible and user-friendly for everyday transactions.
So maybe using Bitcoin to buy my morning coffee isn't so far-fetched.
It's a possibility, and that could have both positive and negative consequences. On the one hand, it could make things faster, cheaper, and more efficient.
But on the
other hand, there are concerns about privacy and security. If all your transactions are on a public blockchain, it makes you more vulnerable to things like identity theft and surveillance.
Right, because with cash, there's a certain level of anonymity that you just don't have with crypto. So it's a trade-off, I guess, convenience versus privacy.
Exactly. As with any new tech, there are trade-offs to consider. But one thing's for sure, the world of finance is changing fast, and it's important to stay informed so you can make smart decisions.
I'm definitely feeling a little more informed than I was an hour ago, but also maybe a little overwhelmed. This whole thing is like a Pandora's box of possibilities and potential problems.
It's a lot to take in, for sure, and we haven't even touched on the potential role of artificial intelligence in all this.
Oh, yeah. David Sachs, crypto and AI expert, right there with Trump when he signed the order.
Yeah.
That can't be just a coincidence.
It's definitely worth exploring crypto and AI. They're closely intertwined and could have a huge impact on each other.
I'm not really seeing the connection. Is it just about AI being used to, analyze crypto markets or something?
That's one aspect of it. Sure, AI can analyze tons of data, helping traders make better decisions, but it goes much deeper than that. AI could be used to create more sophisticated trading algorithms, which could lead to even greater volatility.
Wait, AI could make the crypto market even more unpredictable? That doesn't sound good.
It's a double-edged sword. Those algorithms could lead to greater efficiency and help stabilize the market by identifying risks, but they could also open up new ways for manipulation, making the system even harder to understand.
So it's like a high-stakes chess game with AI playing both sides.
Exactly, and the outcome is still uncertain. The one thing we know is the combination of crypto and AI is a powerful force, and it will shape our world in ways we can't even imagine yet.
Okay, so digital currencies reshaping the financial landscape, AI adding another layer of complexity, and governments trying to figure it all out. It's a lot.
It's definitely a dynamic and fast-changing field, and that's why it's important to have a resource like this deep dive where we can break down these complex topics and help you make sense of it all.
Exactly. We're here to guide you through this digital jungle.
Yeah.
But speaking of making sense of it all, I'm still trying to grasp how this executive order will impact everyday people. We talk about buying groceries with Bitcoin, but what are some other potential consequences?
That's a key question. I mean, the big picture stuff is important, but we need to remember that these changes will affect individuals in their day-to-day lives.
So how might this play out?
Well, one scenario is that with crypto becoming more widely used, we could see a more inclusive financial system.
Meaning?
Meaning that people who are currently shut out from traditional banking, maybe they don't have ID or a credit history, they could access financial services through crypto.
That's an interesting point. It could empower people who have been left behind by the current system.
Exactly. And it could also lead to more financial literacy as people learn about these new technologies to participate in this new economy.
But there are potential downsides, too. We talked about privacy, but are there other risks?
Of course, one of the biggest concerns is fraud and scams, which are already a huge problem in the crypto space.
Yeah, I've heard some scary stories about people losing everything in crypto scams.
And it's only going to get worse as crypto becomes more mainstream and attracts more people who don't really understand it.
So it's super important to do your research, understand the risks, and be very careful about where you invest your money.
Absolutely. And we need strong consumer protections to prevent fraud and abuse.
Right, so there's potential for both good and bad outcomes here. It really depends on how this all unfolds and how governments and regulators respond.
Precisely. The future is uncertain, but the choices we make today will determine what that future looks like.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to move to the final part of this deep dive. We've covered a lot from the executive order itself to the bigger implications for the future of money. Now let's bring it all home and talk about what this means for you, the listener. All right, so we've talked about the global impacts, the personal impact, but there's one thing that still feels kind of, I don't know, sci-fi to me.
You mean the National Digital Asset Stockpile?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Like, how does that even work? Does the U.S. government just, start buying Bitcoin on Coinbase? Do they raid some, supervillain secret crypto vault?
It's definitely uncharted territory, but we can maybe look to history for some clues. Well, remember when the U.S. started stockpiling gold back in the early 1900s? It was a strategic move to, back the dollar and become a financial superpower. This digital asset stockpile, it could be like a 21st century version of that.
So Bitcoin is the new gold.
Yeah.
I've heard that before, but it's hard to picture, digital tokens replacing physical stuff like gold bars.
It's not necessarily about replacement, it's about diversification. The dollar has been the world's reserve currency for a long time, but that's changing, right? China's pushing its digital yuan, other countries are doing their own thing. It's a whole new world out there.
And crypto is like the wild card in all this.
Exactly. By building the stockpile, the U.S. is hedging its bets, making sure they have a place at the table no matter how things shake out.
Okay, that makes sense strategically. But how do they actually do it? I mean, where does all this crypto even come from?
That's a question for that working group we talked about. They've got a few options. They could buy it directly, work with private companies, or even use crypto seized by law enforcement, like you mentioned.
I think my brain just glitched a little bit. I can barely manage my own crypto, and now I'm trying to picture the U.S. government managing billions of dollars worth of this stuff.
Yeah, it's a huge undertaking, and it brings up all these questions about transparency and accountability. Who decides what to buy? How do they keep it safe? How do they prevent, insider trading or market manipulation?
This is getting deep. It feels like this executive order is just the beginning. It's opening up a whole universe of questions and
Well,
challenges.
that's what happens when you have disruptive innovation. It forces us to, rethink everything.
Well, one thing's for sure, this deep dive has given me a lot to think about. It's not just about, code and coins. It's about power, strategy, the whole future of finance.
And as we talked about, it's also about the impact on individuals. It could be really empowering for some, but there are also risks that we need to be aware of.
So as we wrap this up, what's the big takeaway for our listeners? What should they be thinking about?
I think the most important thing is to stay informed, be critical of the information you're seeing, and don't be afraid to ask questions. The crypto world changes fast, and what's true today might not be true tomorrow.
Great advice. And if you're intrigued by all this, I definitely encourage you to do your own research, check out the source articles we've linked, and stay tuned for more deep dives into the wild world of crypto. Because one thing is clear, this is just the beginning.
Absolutely. The digital revolution is here to stay.